The gunshot that killed her father echoed through the canyon long after his body hit the dust, and Lily Ashford knew in that moment that survival would become her only religion. She was 22 years old in the spring of 1878, standing in the doorway of their ranch house outside Tropic, Utah, watching the dust settle where her father had fallen defending their land from claim jumpers. Her mother had died 2 winters before from pneumonia, and her brother had left for California 6 months ago, chasing rumors of gold and a fresh start. Now, there was no one left but her and the red rock country that stretched endlessly in every direction. The claim jumpers rode off when they realized they had killed a man, their courage evaporating with the gravity of murder hanging over their heads. Lily buried her father herself, digging through the rocky soil for hours until her hands bled, and the sun began its descent behind the towering cliffs that gave this strange, beautiful land its character. She spoke no words over the grave because there were no words left in her. She simply marked it with stones and walked back to the empty house, where silence pressed against her like a physical thing. The ranch was small, just enough cattle to survive on and a garden that struggled in the arid soil. Her father had chosen this place because the land was cheap, and the Mormon settlers in Tropic proper were kind enough, though they kept mostly to themselves. The Ashfords were not Mormon, and that created a quiet distance that never fully closed. Now that distance felt like an ocean. No one came to check on her. No one knew her father was dead. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, and they had their own struggles with drought and hardship. Lily learned quickly that grief was a luxury she could not afford. The cattle needed feeding. The garden needed water hauled from the creek that ran through the property, fed by snowmelt from the high country. The fences needed mending where weather and time had weakened them. She worked from dawn until her body collapsed into sleep each night, too exhausted to dream, too numb to cry. Days blended into weeks, and weeks into months. Summer arrived with its brutal heat, temperatures that made the rocks shimmer and turned the air into something you had to chew before breathing. She rode into Tropic once a month for supplies, speaking only when necessary, paying with the small amount of money her father had saved. The townspeople watched her with a mixture of pity and unease. A woman alone was an aberration out here, something that did not fit into the natural order of things. She could feel their questions hanging in the air, but no one asked them directly, and she offered no explanations. She bought flour, coffee, salt, ammunition for the rifle she now carried everywhere, and rode back to her solitude. By autumn, the money was nearly gone. Lily sold 3 head of cattle to a rancher passing through, getting less than they were worth because desperation showed on her face no matter how hard she tried to hide it. She learned to trap rabbits and shoot sage grouse. She learned which plants were edible and which would make her sick. The land became both her adversary and her teacher, harsh and unforgiving but honest in its cruelty. There were no lies in the desert, no false promises. You survived or you did not, and the land did not care which. Winter came early that year, snow falling in October and not stopping until the drifts reached halfway up the doors. Lily burned furniture to stay warm when the woodpile ran out. She melted snow for water and rationed the last of her supplies with mathematical precision. The cattle huddled together for warmth, and she lost 2 to the cold despite her best efforts. She found them frozen solid one morning, their eyes still open, and she felt a kinship with them that frightened her. How easy it would be to simply lie down in the snow and let the cold take her too. How simple to stop fighting, but she did not stop. Something stubborn and fundamental in her core refused to yield. She butchered the frozen cattle herself, saving the meat in the snow, working with numb fingers and grim determination. She ate and survived and waited for spring, because that was all there was to do. When the snow finally melted in late March of 1879, Lily took inventory of her situation with clear eyes. She had 4 cattle left, no money, almost no supplies, and a growing certainty that she could not survive another winter alone. Pride was another luxury she could no longer afford. She would have to sell the ranch, move to town, find work as a seamstress or a cook, or whatever someone would hire a woman to do. The thought felt like failure, like betraying her father's memory, but the alternative was death, and she had not fought this hard just to give up now. She was riding the fence line on a cool April morning, checking for damage, when she saw the rider approaching from the east. Her hand went instinctively to the rifle in its saddle scabbard, but she did not draw it. Something about the way the rider sat his horse, relaxed but alert, suggested he was not a threat. He was still too far away to make out details, but he rode with the easy confidence of someone who belonged in this landscape. Lily reined in her horse and waited, watching the rider approach across the sage-covered ground. As he drew closer, she could see he was young, probably not much older than she was, wearing dusty trail clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. He sat a tall roan gelding that looked like it could run all day without tiring. When he was close enough, he stopped and pushed his hat back, revealing a sun-weathered face with sharp cheekbones and surprisingly gentle gray eyes. "Morning, miss," he said, his voice a low drawl that carried the accent of someone from farther south, maybe Texas or New Mexico. "I am looking for the Ashford place. Am I headed right?" "You are on it," Lily said, keeping her voice neutral. "What is your business?" The rider shifted in his saddle, and she noticed the way he moved carefully, telegraphing his intentions so as not to spook her. "Name is Warren Zimmerman. I worked for your father last year, helped drive cattle up from Colorado. He wrote to me in February, said he might have work come spring. I have been on the trail for 3 weeks. Lily felt something crack inside her chest, some small piece of the armor she had built around herself. Her father had been planning ahead, trying to secure help, knowing he could not manage the ranch alone as he grew older. He had been thinking about the future right up until the moment that bullet tore it away from him. "My father is dead," she said flatly. "He was killed last May. There is no work here." Warren Zimmerman's face changed, genuine sorrow replacing the polite neutrality of a moment before. "I am real sorry to hear that, miss. He was a good man. Paid fair and treated me decent, which is more than most." He paused, looking past her at the ranch buildings visible in the distance. "You have been managing this place alone for near a year." "I have managed," Lily said, defensive now, hearing the disbelief in his question even though his tone had not been unkind. "I reckon you have," Warren said, and there was something like respect in his voice. "Your father talked about you some. Said you were tougher than most men he knew." Looks like he was not exaggerating. He gathered his reins as if to leave, then hesitated. "You got help coming? Someone to work the ranch with you?" "No," Lily said shortly. "I am selling it. Moving to town." Warren looked at her for a long moment, those gray eyes seeing more than she wanted him to. "That what you want to do?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her what she wanted in longer than she could remember. Survival had eliminated want from the equation. "It does not matter what I want. It is what I have to do." "Maybe not," Warren said slowly, like he was working through an idea as he spoke. "Your father offered me a job. I came a long way based on his word. Seems like the honorable thing would be to work off that debt, even if he is gone. I could stay on for a few months, help you get the place back in order. No wages necessary, just food and a place to sleep." When summer is done, you will be in a better position to sell if that is still what you want. Or maybe you will be in a position to stay." Lily stared at him, searching for the angle, the hidden motive. Men did not help women for free, not in her experience. There was always a price, always something they wanted in return. "Why would you do that?" Warren shrugged, a gesture so casual it almost convinced her of its sincerity. "I liked your father. Figure I owe him that much. And truth be told, I am not in any hurry to be anywhere else. Ranch I was working down in Arizona folded. Owner drank himself to death and his widow sold everything off. I got time and energy and you got need of both. Seems like things might work out mutual beneficial." "I cannot pay you," Lily repeated, needing him to understand how complete her poverty was. "I heard you the first time," Warren said patiently. "I am not asking for pay. But I have not eaten since yesterday morning, and that was just hardtack and jerky. If you got coffee and something resembling breakfast, I would count that as payment enough for today. We can worry about tomorrow when it gets here." Lily made her decision in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe she would regret it. But the thought of another season alone, another winter of slowly starving and freezing and fighting to hold onto something that kept slipping through her fingers like water, was more than she could bear. "Follow me," she said, and turned her horse toward home. Warren Zimmerman was as good as his word. He unsaddled his horse, turned it into the corral with her remaining cattle, and waited on the porch while she decided what to do about breakfast. She had flour, a little bacon she had been rationing, some eggs from the 3 chickens that had survived the winter. She cooked while he waited outside, respecting the unspoken boundary of her home, and when she called him in, he removed his hat and sat at the table like a man sitting in church. They ate in silence, the kind that felt more companionable than awkward. When the food was gone, Warren sat back and looked at her directly. "Tell me what needs doing most." Lily told him everything. The fences that needed mending, the cattle that needed moving to better grazing, the roof that leaked in 2 places, the garden that needed planting if they wanted vegetables to see them through the next winter. She told him about the hay that needed cutting and storing, about the predators that had been getting bolder, about the 100 small disasters waiting to happen if not prevented. She spoke for 20 minutes straight, and he listened without interrupting, just nodding occasionally. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, then said, "We best get started then." That first day set the pattern for the weeks that followed. Warren worked with a steady efficiency that spoke of long experience and natural competence. He fixed the fence line, repaired the barn door that had been hanging crooked for 6 months, and replaced rotted boards on the porch steps. He worked without complaint and without needing to be told what to do next. He seemed to have an instinct for what was urgent and what could wait, moving through tasks with a logic that Lily found herself trusting despite her determination not to. She worked beside him, unwilling to be seen as deadweight on her own ranch. If he noticed her pride, he had the grace not to comment on it. Instead, he adjusted to her pace, neither rushing ahead to make her feel inadequate nor slowing down to make her feel coddled. They worked as a team, and Lily felt something she had not felt in a very long time: relief. The burden she had been carrying alone was suddenly lighter, shared across 2 sets of shoulders. Warren slept in the barn, making himself a comfortable enough space in the loft. Lily cooked their meals, and they ate together at the table, conversation gradually becoming easier. He told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to ride before he could walk properly, about his parents who had died of fever when he was 15, leaving him to make his own way. He talked about the ranches he had worked, the towns he had seen, the vast emptiness of the territories that both frightened and attracted people in equal measure. Lily found herself talking too, more than she had spoken in months. She told him about her mother's death, about her brother's departure, about the loneliness that had become so familiar she barely recognized it anymore. She told him about the men who had killed her father, and the way she sometimes woke in the night hearing that gunshot echo through her dreams. "You ever think about going after them?" Warren asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set behind the red cliffs that dominated the horizon. "Every day at first," Lily admitted, "but I do not know who they were, and even if I did, what would I do? I am not a killer." "No," Warren agreed quietly. "You are a survivor. That takes more strength." The words settled into her chest like a warm stone, and she realized she believed him. Survival was not the coward's choice she had sometimes feared it was. It was the hard choice, the one that required waking up every morning and choosing to keep going. As April turned to May, the ranch began to transform. The repairs were complete. The cattle were thriving on spring grass, and the garden was planted and showing the first green shoots of growth. Warren had a way with animals, gentling the skittish cattle and repairing the relationship Lily had lost with them during the harsh winter when she had been more adversary than caretaker. He brought in fresh meat regularly, his aim with a rifle better than hers, though she would never have admitted it out loud. They developed routines, small rituals that marked the passage of days. Coffee at dawn before the work began. A shared meal at midday, usually something simple eaten quickly before returning to tasks. Evenings on the porch, talking or sitting in comfortable silence, watching the sky cycle through its dramatic color changes. Lily found herself watching for Warren's smile, the way it started in his eyes before reaching his mouth, the way it made her feel lighter somehow. She told herself it was just gratitude. He had helped her when she needed it most, and she was naturally thankful. But gratitude did not explain the way her heart beat faster when he came in from the range, dusty and tired but grinning about some small victory. Gratitude did not explain the way she started taking more care with her appearance, washing her hair more often, wearing the one dress she owned that was not completely worn out. Gratitude did not explain the warmth that spread through her chest when their hands accidentally brushed reaching for the same tool or passing a plate across the table. Warren seemed to feel it too, though he was careful about maintaining propriety. He never presumed, never pushed for more than she offered, but she caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she was not looking. His gaze held something tender and hungry at once, and it made her skin feel too tight, made her aware of herself in ways she had forgotten during the long months of survival. One evening in late May, exactly a year after her father's death, Lily walked out to his grave and stood there as the sun set. She had marked the anniversary in her mind all day, feeling the weight of it, the impossible fact that a whole year had passed and she was still here, still fighting. Warren had noticed her mood but had not asked about it, giving her space. She was standing there, tears finally coming after being held back for so long, when she heard footsteps behind her. Warren stopped a respectful distance away, holding his hat in his hands. "Figured you might be out here," he said quietly. "Today is a year, is it not?" Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. Warren was quiet for a moment, then said, "You have done him proud, Lily. This place was near dying when I got here. Now it is alive again. That is all because of you." "Not just me," Lily managed to say. "You saved this place as much as I did." "No," Warren said firmly. "You saved it. You held on when anyone else would have let go. I just helped a little." He paused, then took a step closer. "I want to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you say anything." Lily turned to face him, wiping at her wet cheeks, embarrassed by the tears but unable to stop them. "All right." Warren looked down at his hat, turning it in his hands, then met her eyes. "When I rode up here 5 weeks ago, I thought I was just doing a favor for a good man's memory. Figured I would stay a month or two, help out, and move on like I always do. But something changed. You changed it." He took a breath. "I am not much. I got no land, no money, no prospects beyond what my back and my hands can earn. But I am honest and I work hard and I know I could make a good life with the right partner." He took another step closer, close enough now that she could see the emotion in his eyes. "You do not have to be alone anymore, Lily. You do not have to fight this hard life by yourself. I am asking if you would let me stay, not as hired help but as your husband. I am asking if you would take a chance on building something together." Lily stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. A month ago, the answer would have been automatic rejection. She had learned not to need anyone, not to rely on anyone, because everyone left eventually. But Warren had not left. He had stayed through the hard work and the quiet evenings and the gradual thawing of her frozen heart. He had seen her at her worst, tired and dirty and sharp-edged with survival, and he was still here, asking for the privilege of staying. "You do not know me," she said, but her voice was weak, unconvincing even to herself. "I know you better than you think," Warren said. "I know you are brave and stubborn and strong. I know you do not quit even when quitting makes more sense. I know you saved your father's dream with nothing but determination and will. I know that when you smile, which is not near often enough, it makes me want to do whatever it takes to see it again." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. "I know I am halfway in love with you already, and I figure if you give me a chance, I will make it all the way there and beyond." Lily looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. She saw sincerity there and hope, and something that looked like her own loneliness reflected back. She thought about the year that had passed, about everything she had endured and overcome. She thought about the future stretching out ahead of her and realized she did not want to face it alone anymore, not because she could not, but because she did not have to. "Yes," she said, and the word felt like opening a door that had been locked for too long. "Yes, I will marry you." Warren's face transformed, joy lighting it from within. He squeezed her hand gently, then pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. Lily wrapped her arms around him and let herself lean into his strength, not because she was weak, but because sharing the load did not diminish her. It multiplied her. They were married 3 weeks later in Tropic, a simple ceremony performed by the Mormon bishop who set aside his usual reluctance about marrying non-members because he remembered Lily's father and respected the struggle she had endured. The few townspeople who attended looked relieved more than anything, as if her marriage restored proper order to their understanding of the world. Lily did not care what they thought. She stood beside Warren and spoke her vows with clear conviction, promising to honor and cherish this man who had appeared when she needed him most and had chosen to stay. The wedding night was gentle and awkward and ultimately sweet, both of them fumbling through intimacy with more care than expertise. Warren was patient, attentive to her comfort, and when it was over, Lily lay in his arms feeling safer than she had in longer than she could remember. This was what partnership meant, she realized. Not losing herself but finding more of herself reflected in someone else's eyes. Summer unfolded in a haze of work and growing contentment. Warren proved to be an even better partner than hired help, invested in the ranch's success, because it was now his success too. They worked together seamlessly, learning each other's rhythms and habits, building something that felt solid and real. The ranch thrived under their combined efforts. They bought 2 young heifers with money saved from selling wool from the small flock of sheep Warren suggested they acquire. The garden flourished, providing more vegetables than they could eat, so Lily began preserving them for winter. In August, a group of men rode onto the property, and Lily felt her whole body tense with remembered fear. But Warren stepped forward calmly, his hand resting on his gun but not drawing it, and spoke to them in a voice that carried easy authority. They were just cowhands from a larger ranch to the north, asking permission to drive cattle through on their way to market. Warren negotiated a small fee for the privilege, and the men paid without argument, tipping their hats to Lily respectfully before moving on. "How did you do that?" Lily asked after they had gone, still marveling at the casual confidence he had displayed. "Did what?" Warren looked genuinely puzzled. "Made them respect us, made them see us as legitimate." Warren smiled. "They saw a woman and a man working a ranch together, which is how things are supposed to look out here. You were legitimate before I showed up, Lily. You just did not have anyone to back you up. Now you do." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Lily realized he was right. She had been fighting alone for so long she had forgotten what it felt like to have someone in her corner, someone who saw threats as shared problems rather than her burden alone. Autumn brought cooler temperatures and the hard work of preparing for winter. This year felt completely different from the last. The woodpile was stacked high and neat. The root cellar was full of preserved food. The cattle were healthy and fat on summer grass. The house had been repaired and insulated against the cold. Lily and Warren worked side by side, preparing for the season she had once feared would kill her, and now she faced it with calm confidence. On a cool October evening, Lily realized her monthly bleeding had not come. She waited another week, not wanting to say anything until she was sure, then told Warren over dinner. He looked stunned for a moment, then broke into a grin so wide it made her laugh. "A baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "We are going to have a baby." "Next spring, I think," Lily said, feeling a flutter of nervousness mixed with excitement. "April or May." Warren came around the table and pulled her to her feet, holding her close. "I am going to be a father," he said against her hair. "I cannot quite believe it." "Believe it," Lily said, smiling. "And you better be ready to do more of the heavy work come winter, because I will not be able to help as much." "I will do whatever needs doing," Warren said firmly. "You just take care of yourself and our baby." The winter of 1879 was cold but manageable. Lily's pregnancy progressed without complication, her body changing in ways that amazed and occasionally frightened her. Warren was attentive to the point of being overprotective, trying to keep her from doing anything strenuous, and they had their first real argument when she insisted she was perfectly capable of feeding the chickens. "I am pregnant, not dying," she said with exasperation. "I can still function." "I know," Warren said, backing down. "I just want you safe." "I am safe," Lily said, her voice softening. "I am safer than I have ever been because you are here. But I need to still be me, Warren. I need to still be strong." He understood, and they found a balance. Lily did lighter chores while Warren handled the heavy labor. They spent long evenings by the fire, talking about the baby, making plans, dreaming about the future. Warren built a cradle from cedar wood, carving it with careful attention to detail. Lily sewed tiny clothes from soft fabric she traded for in town, each stitch an act of hope. Spring came early in 1880, and with it came labor. Lily had ridden into town the week before and arranged for a midwife to come stay with them as her time approached. The woman arrived 2 days before the contraction started, a sturdy Mormon woman named Sister Patterson, who had delivered half the babies in Tropic and radiated competent calm. The labor was long and hard, lasting through the night and into the next day. Warren paced outside, occasionally allowed in to hold Lily's hand during the worst contractions, his face pale with worry. Sister Patterson worked with steady efficiency, offering encouragement and practical guidance, never once suggesting that anything was wrong even though Lily was certain she was dying. Finally, as the sun reached its zenith on that May afternoon, the baby came. The first cry split the air, thin and outraged, and Lily felt tears streaming down her face even as she laughed with relief and exhaustion. "It is a boy," Sister Patterson announced, wrapping the baby in a clean blanket and laying him on Lily's chest. "A fine, healthy boy." Warren was allowed in, and he stood beside the bed staring down at his son with an expression of such pure love that Lily felt her heart might burst. The baby was red and wrinkled and perfect, his tiny fists waving in the air, his eyes squinted shut against the light. "We have a son," Warren said, his voice breaking on the words. "Lily, we have a son." They named him William after Warren's father, with the middle name Thomas after Lily's father. Little William was a good baby, crying only when hungry or wet, sleeping in the cedar cradle beside their bed. Lily recovered slowly from the birth, helped by Warren, who took over almost all the household chores for the first month, insisting she rest and heal and bond with their child. Those first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. They took turns walking William when he fussed in the night. They marveled over every tiny change, every new expression, every small milestone. The ranch work continued, though at a slower pace, with Warren doing the bulk of it while Lily cared for the baby. By summer, they had settled into new rhythms. Lily would bring William outside in a basket while she tended the garden, singing to him as she worked. Warren would ride in from checking the cattle and scoop the baby up, talking to him in a low voice about everything he had seen that day, as if their son could understand every word. The years that followed were good ones. Hard work never stopped, but it felt different when it was building something for a family rather than just surviving alone. They added rooms to the house as their family grew. A daughter came 2 years after William, and they named her Caroline after Warren's mother. Another son arrived 2 years after that, named Samuel, and then another daughter they called Margaret. The house filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of children. The ranch prospered too. They bought more land when a neighbor decided to move back east. Their cattle herd grew. Warren gained a reputation as an honest dealer, and other ranchers sought him out for advice and partnership. Lily became known for her garden and her preserved goods, which she traded in town for supplies and a little extra money. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, secure in a way that would have seemed impossible during those dark months when Lily was alone. William grew into a strong, serious boy who followed his father everywhere, learning to ride and rope and work cattle. Caroline was bright and fearless, climbing trees and exploring the red rock canyons despite her mother's warnings to be careful. Samuel was gentle and thoughtful, always the peacemaker among his siblings. Margaret, the baby, was stubborn and determined, reminding Lily so much of herself that it was sometimes startling. On a warm evening in the summer of 1891, Lily and Warren sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard. William was 16 now, nearly a man, teaching Samuel to throw a lasso. Caroline, at 14, was reading to 10-year-old Margaret from a book Lily had ordered from a catalog. The two girls sprawled in the grass. "You ever think about that day I rode up here?" Warren asked, his hand finding Lily's the way it still did after all these years. "Sometimes," Lily admitted. "It feels like a lifetime ago." "It was a lifetime ago," Warren said, "or maybe the start of one." He squeezed her hand gently. I think about what I said to you that day, when I told you that you did not have to be alone anymore. Still the truest thing I ever spoke. Lily turned to look at him, this man who had appeared when she needed him most and had stayed to build a life with her. His hair was starting to show gray at the temples, and lines had formed around his eyes from squinting into the sun, but he was still the same man who had offered her partnership and hope when she had neither. I think about what I almost missed, she said quietly. If I had turned you away that day, if I had been too proud or too scared to accept help, I would have lost all of this. She gestured at their children, their home, the land that stretched around them green and thriving. I would have lost you. You never would have lost yourself, though, Warren said. You would have survived same as you always did. Maybe, Lily said, but I would not have lived, not really. You taught me the difference. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the red cliffs in shades of orange and gold. The air was cooling as evening approached, carrying the scent of sage and the distant sound of cattle lowing. This was home, Lily thought. Not just the land or the house, but this feeling of peace, of belonging, of being exactly where she was meant to be. William called out that he was taking the younger children to check on the horses, and Lily waved her permission. Caroline and Margaret ran after their brothers, arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to brush which horse. Their voices faded as they headed toward the barn, leaving Lily and Warren alone. We did good, Warren said, his voice full of satisfaction and pride. Built something worth keeping. We did, Lily agreed. Better than I ever imagined possible. Warren stood and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her waist. Even after all these years, his touch still made her heart beat faster. He kissed her slowly, tenderly, with the practiced intimacy of two people who knew each other completely. I love you, he said when they finally pulled apart. Have since that first month, if I am being honest, still do, always will. I love you too, Lily said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. You gave me back my life, Warren. You gave me everything. We gave each other everything, Warren corrected gently. That is how partnership works. The children's laughter drifted back from the barn, and Lily smiled. This was the life her father would have wanted for her, she thought. Not just survival, but happiness. Not just endurance, but joy. She had survived the worst year of her life alone, had proven to herself that she was strong enough to face anything. But she had also learned that strength did not mean refusing help, and independence did not require isolation. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Lily and Warren lay together in the darkness, listening to the familiar sounds of their home settling around them. The wind whispered through the eaves. An owl called from somewhere in the distance. The floor creaked as one of the children shifted in sleep. You remember telling me about hearing the gunshot in your dreams? Warren asked softly. I remember, Lily said. You still hear it. Lily thought about it, realizing that she had not had that particular nightmare in years. No, she said with some surprise. I have not for a long time. Good, Warren said, pulling her closer. No more nightmares, just good dreams from here on out. Lily settled against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from that terrified, grieving girl standing over her father's grave to the woman she was now, surrounded by love and family and security. The path had been hard, but she would not change it, because it had led her exactly where she needed to be. In the darkness, Warren's breathing evened out as he drifted into sleep. Lily stayed awake a little longer, savoring the peace of this moment, the completeness of this life they had built together. She had survived on her own because she had no choice. But Warren had been right all those years ago. She did not have to anymore. She had someone to share the load, to face the challenges with, to celebrate the victories beside. She had a partner, a husband, a family. She had everything she had never known she was missing during those long, lonely months. Outside, the desert night settled over the ranch, cool and quiet under a sky full of stars. The cattle were secure in their pasture. The horses were safe in the barn. The garden lay waiting for tomorrow's sun to coax more growth from the rich soil. Everything was as it should be, peaceful and prosperous and full of promise. Lily closed her eyes and let sleep take her, secure in the knowledge that when morning came, she would wake beside the man she loved in the home they had made together. There would be work to do, as there always was, but it would be shared work, faced together. There would be challenges, because life always brought challenges, but they would meet them side by side. She had learned to survive alone, but she had learned something even more valuable with Warren. She had learned to truly live, and to do it surrounded by love. That was worth more than all the land in Utah, more than all the gold in California, more than anything else this hard, beautiful world had to offer. The story that had begun with a gunshot and a grave had become a story of love and family and hope. Lily Zimmerman fell asleep with a smile on her face, grateful for every moment that had brought her here, and eager for all the moments still to come.